you did this exercise last week where you revealed your projected 2025 college football playoff bracket. I was already scheduled to do it this week. It was dumb luck that they decided to vote on the straight seating when they did. So now our brackets look different because I had to seed mine straight, whereas you used the old rules on yours. So mine was a lot easier to do. And it was a very interesting situation. Very interesting. I have a team on there that I think you're going to find very interesting. So let's see if I can. I'm going to try to call this sucker up, and we'll take a look at the bracket. You can see it on the graphic on the screen. As you see, I have Texas as your number 1 seed. I have Penn State as the number 2 seed. Notre Dame at 3, Clemson at 4. 5 seed is Ohio State. 6 seed is Alabama. 7 seed is Georgia. 8 seed is Oregon. 9 seed is Florida. 10 seed is Texas Tech. And my 11 seed is the U. My 12 seed is James Madison, your Sun Belt champ. At least that's what I'm predicting. I didn't put Boise State. We'll start with the 12 seed. I didn't put Boise State in there automatically because Boise State has a tricky non-conference schedule. Tricky. They play at Notre Dame, which losing at Notre Dame is not going to keep them out. But they also play at USF, and Appalachian State comes to them. So if they're not as good as they were last year, there's a
good trip. Yeah.
Distinct possibility they lose a couple of those. So that's why I said, okay, let me look for somebody different. So I go with James Madison, who went 9-4 last year, even after Kirk Cignetti took a lot of the guys who were the best players on the 2023 team to Indiana, where they went 11-1. Bob Chesney did a good job. He's reunited with one of your old pals. You know who that is?
No, who am I forgetting?
Matthew Sluka.
Oh.
Remember from the first month of UNLV season?
Is that where he went?
He went to James Madison because, remember, he played for Bob Chesney at Holy Cross.
It would be kind of an interesting curve of events if like Sluka Doncic got to the
Sluka Doncic got traded to the Dukes.
Yeah, like I'm on board with that. Do you want to talk about Miami, or are you going to keep making me wait?
Yeah, let's talk about Miami. So here's my deal with Miami. So this is essentially the same spot in the playoff where you had Illinois. And so I was looking at 3 different teams for this. Illinois, and then also Indiana, because after we talked to Clark Brooks and I examined his whole top 100 returning impact players and realized Indiana has the same number as like Alabama and Oregon and Clemson, I was like, you know what? We should probably be putting some more respect on Indiana's name here.
Yeah, but not quite enough to put them in the playoff, right?
Well, okay, so here's the way I looked at it. I wanted to pick one of these teams, but I picked the one I thought was most likely to beat another team that's in the playoff that's on its schedule. So basically I said, I think Miami beats Notre Dame in the season opener and then loses to Florida because I have Florida seated above them. It's the only way this bracket can make sense. But then goes undefeated in ACC play and then loses to Clemson in the ACC championship game. And that would put them here because they would the win against Notre Dame would be the thing buoying them. And that's what I was talking about earlier when I said there's a team I have in my projected bracket that if they'd scheduled an easy non-conference game in that spot, they're out of the playoff. But because they didn't, and because they win it, they're in the playoff.
Yeah. I said that Miami could be 10-2 or 8-4, and neither would be surprising. Like if Miami made the playoff, I don't think that would be like earth-shattering. You know, like,
I don't think it'd be shocking. Their defense would have to be better. I think their offense, it's a lot to ask. As I said yesterday, a lot to ask to think their offense will be as good or better than last year with Cam Ward and Xavier Restrepo. But if their defense is significantly better, then their offense doesn't have to be even as good as they were last year to make the playoff. And so here's the thing: when I was considering this,
their offense isn't going to be anywhere near. Like it's not even like, will it be?
That it's going to be that far off. I don't know.
Last year's offense at Miami is like maybe one of the best offenses in Miami history, dude. Like I think that we're like underestimating how good they were offensively last year.
I think they were really good. I think they could also be really good this year offensively. And if they get better defensively, they got a shot. So here's
I just think that it's a
here's my
fact that they
reasoning though. So this is me saying I think Miami can beat Notre Dame in that season opener. And you're saying, okay, Andy, why do you have Notre Dame so high? Well, it's basically the same season as last season. Instead of losing game 2, they lose game 1, and then they rip off 11 wins in a row, and they finish 11-1. So with Illinois and Indiana, who I was also considering, who I think are going to be very good this year, I basically said, can they beat one of the teams that I think is going to be in the playoff that's on their schedule? So can Illinois beat Ohio State, or can Indiana beat Oregon or Penn State? I think Miami beating Notre Dame would be more like, or Miami beating Florida, if Florida's a playoff type team. Like, I think that's more likely than one of those two teams beating one of those teams I mentioned in the Big Ten.
Yes, I think that's fair. It's really hard because even as people like us who believe in Indiana, I believe a lot in Illinois, like actually putting the pen down and writing them into the bracket's difficult. Like actually like putting your name on that.
They kind of have to have an Indiana like season. Now, I will say Illinois playing Duke in the non-conference, the non-ball knowers are going to look, Duke. No. Duke won 9 games last year and then went out and got a better quarterback. So, no. Duke is a tough non-conference game.
Yeah.
But it's still, like, they didn't get the toughest Big Ten draw. Like, I said hammer the over on the 7.5 on Illinois. Like, they're going to have to do something, I think, to cement it. And that Ohio State game, like, if they win that and they're 10-2, they're in the field. There's no question.
Yeah.
But if they're 11-1 and they got shellacked by Ohio State, then you have a very similar situation.
I don't remember Indiana's schedule off the top of my head. This is more difficult on the surface to me.
Well, and they play each other. So the win against Indiana or the win against Illinois is going to help whoever wins that game.
That Duke, Indiana, USC, Ohio State, Washington, and then Wisconsin on the road in late November is a difficult schedule to me.
Well, yeah. Well, last year when we looked at Indiana's and saw Washington and Michigan, we were like, oh, God, they're going to get murdered here. So it depends on what these teams actually are. We just don't know.
That's the most difficult thing about it, too. It's like hard to come up with the rigor of a schedule when you're not necessarily sure from top to bottom. Like, what is USC going to be? Like, do we know what USC is?
Nope.
We don't.
No idea
know what they are. So, okay, another interesting thing, because we have a lot of the same teams. I don't know how much we have to rehash. You have 2 interesting ones that I did not have in mind. And then everything else is rehash because you've got Oregon, you've got Georgia, Texas, Penn State, Bama, all those teams.
Yep.
You actually did the thing that I was too much of a wuss to do, which was put Florida in.
So it's really like it's going to be LSU or it's going to be Florida or it's going to be Texas A&M or it's going to be South Carolina. Like, one of those teams is going to make it. I just don't know which one. But I think Florida has maybe the best quarterback of all of them, and which is saying something because South Carolina and LSU also have really good quarterbacks. But listen, call me a homer if you want. I think I've been exceptionally critical of my alma mater over the last few years. The reason I'm not so critical of them right now is I think they have a really, really good quarterback in DJ Lagway. So I'm drinking that Kool-Aid. If his arm is okay, which is a big if, he elevates a group that the lines of scrimmage both got better as the season went on last year. You
don't need to rehash.
I think
great running back, one of the best interior offensive linemen in the
country. You come in and thinking their offensive and defensive lines are actually good this year as opposed to last year where you didn't think that. So that's why their schedule's still incredibly tough and the line is still very thin between them making the playoff and fire everyone. That's all there is to it.
And then you pick Tech in the Big 12.
I did. No, like we said last week, the Big 12 is impossible to predict. I just went with a team that bought what it thinks is the best roster in the Big 12. They went out in the transfer portal and competed against teams that Texas Tech typically does not compete against for players, and they got some of them. And so I'm going to go with the deepest roster wins, which is how you and I, in the Stars Matter universe always operated. We may be wrong.
We couldn't both have the same Big 12 team. That would have been blasphemous.
We couldn't, and by the way, I'm fully reserving the right to flip this to Utah because I've been very, very heavy on chugging Utah Kool-Aid in the last
my pick
8
also
days or so.
has a major issue with their quarterback right now. And it's deeper than football, but
Right.
that will change dramatically if something were to change there. So like that, I am more than comfortable coming on this podcast and saying I have no idea who's going to win the Big 12 next year.
No idea, and it's fine. Listen, we're actually gonna get the 3.5-point coin minted for picking Big 12 games this year.
We should,
so we can flip it.
We're not making the penny anymore, so there's going to be some coin minters.
Yeah, somebody's gonna be need to work. So I had a Texas Ohio State rematch in the semis that we had in the semis this past year. I had a Georgia Notre Dame game, but this time in the semi and not in the quarters. I think that would be a lot of fun. Basically, I had Georgia getting hot and making it to the national championship game. And in this, because I wrote down as I was making this bracket who I thought everybody lost to during the season, so I could make it make sense in terms of seeding. And so I had Texas's only loss was at Georgia, and so it avenges its only loss in the national title game.
Yeah, SEC homer.
That's me.
Live from Destiny. You're going to go down to the beach and put your feet in the sand now?
With Greg Sankey?
Yeah,
I don't think I'm invited. I don't think I'm invited.